being here.
Yes.
I'm Ariel.
I'm Shia.
And in case you haven't figured it out,
We finish each other's sentences.
so welcome aboard and welcome to being here.
Our approach is really not psychotherapeutic. So we don't try to change or fix people. It's really about discovering how to access and live in the current moment of your life. And when you accomplish that, you become appropriate to what life brings you in that moment, and you interact with it appropriately, which makes life very easy. Hence the label that we use, transformation made easy. It doesn't have to be difficult. But what it'll take is discovering how to truly listen. Because when you truly listen, the internal conversation that you normally listen to doesn't, you hold it in abeyance so it doesn't comment on everything being said to see whether you agree or disagree or already know it.
As I'm listening to Shia now, I find myself slowing down. It's so easy to have a forward momentum in your mind. And so being here, of course, that's the title of our podcast, really allows things to be seamless and easy. And as Shai said, our approach is not psychotherapeutic.
It's not problem solution oriented.
So when we have this theme, your background, the springboard to greatness, we have no intention of going back and analyzing how we got to where we are. We just recognizing that our background is a platform upon which this moment stands. And if you're fully here, including everything that came before, your brilliance is accessible. If you're still fighting with a piece of your past as if it's not perfect,
well, then this
difficult.
Moment is not perfect, then nothing is perfect.
It's an extension of imperfection.
Right.
You like that?
Yes.
I did too. Shall we take our first guest?
Let's.
All right. Let's take her. Hi.
Hi, this is Susan from Manhattan, and it's great to be here with you guys.
Thanks. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you. I love the title of this show. When I was a little girl, I swore that I had to have been adopted. I wanted it. What?
What's really funny about that is when I was a little boy, my sisters told me I was. My parents bought me at Macy's in New York City.
That's good.
Good place, you know.
I mean, I look so much like both of my parents physically.
But why did you, I mean, not why, but what was attractive about adoption?
Well, that I would be very different and special, because there was someone in my class in third grade who was adopted, and she got all this attention, like she's adopted. And I thought that would make me very special in my family, because I was disagreeing with the way the whole thing was going on. The whole family situation was not to my liking. So if that would be a great excuse, I'm special. Kind of like a foreign princess who just made it by accident into this family. But, you know, after meeting you guys and participating in your seminars, I am so grateful that I came from where I came from. And I see my folks regularly. They're aging. They are infirm. And I am grateful to have them as parents.
Well, and you are, you know, I know both of your parents. I was thinking about it this morning. I have known you for more than 40 years. Susan.
Oh my God, that's incredible.
It's a while. I mean, there was a
There was a huge gap in between
but
your
still,
first meeting.
that we knew each other at 18 and 19 years old. I mean, it's a long time ago. And you were so I know your parents, they actually live now currently about 20 minutes from our home. And you are very, very much like both of them. So much fun. You know, they're so lovely.
Thank you.
Isn't it funny that we get the idea that in order to be special, we need to be different rather than how we are already is special.
Mm.
If we're alive, that's pretty fantastic.
Well, you know, I spend a lot of my time fishing on a little river near our home. And I watch the different insect catches that come off the river, because there are aquatic insects that spend their early stages of life underwater. And then at some point they come to the surface and they become flying insects, which is pretty wild. Really, talk about transformation.
Yes.
That's a transformation.
Yeah.
Something that crawls around on the bottom of the river, then flies away. But what's interesting about it is the profusion, the incredible numbers of these creatures, that you are one out of billions of human beings, that you are one out of quadrillions, I guess, of other living forms that are existent on this planet right now. You're unique. You're the only one of you. Now, I mean, you know, we could classify you as human being, female, and there are lots of human being females, but there's only one Susan Mercier.
That's pretty incredible.
It is. But you see, normally we don't think of our lives as pretty incredible.
We're normally trying to get away from the bits and pieces that we disapproved of.
Well, you see, our way of looking at life is largely conditioned from the social structure of the cultures we grew up in. And so most of us think that we are somehow defective, deformed, need to get better, need to improve. And that is culturally passed on to us. So we never see our perfection. We look for our imperfections and we look to blame it on where we came from. That's really normal. Doesn't mean that it's true. Doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. It just means that you have these thoughts, and that your thoughts say there's something needing improvement. You need to lose weight. You need to get a better job. You need to go to college. You need to get married. You need to have a career. You know, all of those need tos are socially imposed from a culture that you were born into. So what's your role in life? And that's something you can discover.
And that's my question is, I have a need to help my parents more than I am. And I also...
No, you have a thought. I'll stop you here because you have a thought. You should be helping your parents more than you are.
Exactly.
But you know, that's a subset of an earlier thought. Again, as I mentioned, I've known you for a long time, and it's not been peripheral for the last 20 years or 15 years. We've been friends and quite close friends for, you know, in the more recent past.
Yes.
And your parents have more recently moved in with your brother. Your brother built a space in his house to accommodate them because of course, your parents were aging. But before that, they lived in Philadelphia and you live in New York City. And you had an ongoing conversation. I should visit them more often when they didn't need your help per se. So this is just an ongoing...
A continuation of a theme.
That you've had for a long time. And then I'd say, well, do you want to go down? You can go down. I'll even go down with you. And you didn't actually want to go. You had the conversation that you should.
That's true. A good daughter would do that. A good daughter would want to. Yes.
Yes, we are pre-programmed with a lot of ideas of what a better us would look like. But if you're identifying it in relationship to your parents because that's right now your big ticket item. It's the big thing. But I will bet you on any given day you have those a better me should type of conversations, exercise more or weigh less,
Well, here's the
or
thing.
make X kind of food.
Those conversations really only take place when you are not engaged in what you're doing. Those conversations are like a screensaver on a computer that comes on when the computer is idle for a period of time. So when you're fully engaged, you don't think about being a good daughter or not. When you're giving a voice lesson,
Yes.
and you're really there with the person you're giving a voice lesson to.
Your parents don't even exist.
They don't exist in that moment.
True.
So all of these conversations are that you have leisure time.
That's cool.
Really, if you were really engaged in something. Last night I was out on the river and Ariel came down to visit me. It was getting towards sunset, and so she took some pictures of me on the river that I was not aware I was being photographed. And when I looked at them, I saw in me my cat's predatory nature.
His full engagement. He was,
You know how like a
looking-
cat looks at a bird and they're so there? Well, I'm watching this fishing fly of mine, this creation of fur and feathers, go down the river, and I'm waiting to see if a fish will come up and grab it. It's a very interactive kind of fishing.
In that moment, I didn't exist. His background didn't exist.
What my parents did or didn't do in my childhood certainly didn't exist.
Yes.
You see, when you fully engage in what's going on in your life in current time, there is no conversation about your broken childhood.
But
Or your beautiful childhood, for that matter.
all of your past experiences are on tap as a resource. So the places where you, quote, failed are informational. So to use Shai's fishing analogy, as he's fishing, he's aware of times where the fly did not float in a natural manner because it's happened many, many, many times. So he knows how to adjust things. So he could either go, oh, I failed before. Or my dad never took me fishing.
That's true. Every tree that I catch while trying to catch a fish could be held as a failure, or it's an opportunity to untangle lines. It's an opportunity to tie new leader together because you break off your flies. It's an opportunity for me to make more flies eventually.
Yes.
See, it's all an opportunity.
I often think people, or not even think, I have observed people come to us in the beginning, often wrestling with pieces of their past and behaviors they've had or behaviors they've disagreed with, for instance, family members or things that happen in school that they hold as wrong. And if we talk about the 3 principles of instantaneous transformation, it really sets in place that conversation we're having about how your background is your springboard into greatness. Because the first thing is anything you resist, you drag with you, it persists, it grows stronger, it dominates your life. So if you don't like something that happened, you bring it with you. And I'm suddenly recalling Kareen, our friend Kareen, who parents worked very hard and got her into George Washington University. And she disagreed. She thought she should go to a different university, mainly because anything they did for her at that time, she chose the opposite. Second principle, and I'll get back to her in a minute. Second principle, life shows up as it does. And in any given moment, life can only show up as it does.
Exactly as it is.
So
Not
now,
what you'd prefer.
now, in this moment, Corinne could not possibly have gone to a different university simply because she didn't.
Yes.
And third principle, anything you see without judging completes itself in an instant. Corinne went to university to bring her son, who wanted to now go to that school.
Because what you resist persists. So she disagreed with that school. That was the school he wanted to go to.
So it was really good back and forth. And also, it was a reunion, and she went there, and people were like, "Oh, I remember you. Remember we did this? It was so much fun." She didn't remember any of those fun things.
Because if you have a point of view that you're proving right, then you gather evidence to prove your point of view and you disregard evidence that goes against your position.
So she told us she sat on a bench and actually used her eyes and looked around and saw how exquisite the campus was. And suddenly things that she'd been Xing out returned to her, including how hard it was for her parents to gather the money for her to go to that school, how blessed she was doing. And all of that childish resentment disappeared in an instant. And instead of having gone to a substandard school, suddenly everything was whole, complete, perfect. It had been perfect all along, but the idea that it wasn't was between her and experiencing her greatness.
Wow, that's touching.
I see you being touched.
I am. Because for so many years, I was invested in blaming my parents.
You're so normal, Susan.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I'm certain that a very, very large percentage of our listeners spent their teenage years, early 20s, blaming their parents for their lack of self-confidence. They thought they should know more about how to go about life.
Their lack of success, their attitudes towards sex, and whether or not they were comfortable in their body was generally blamed on, what your parents did or didn't do also.
Yes.
And now?
And now I'm living my life, but with I feel support and buoyed up by my heritage. I love it. I'm grateful for all the things my parents have given me. And I see it when I go visit them, and we don't fight. I had forgotten we used to fight. That is.
Well, I'm sure your husband is very happy about that.
One other thing, this idea that you should help them more and see them more. If you include that, you have that conversation, and it grows out kind of like your hair grows, the color it does, and you don't make it mean anything, then you'll really be there when you should go, or you'll be poised to take that action to take care of them, rather than having ground down your sense of yourself so that you have no ability to take action when it's actually time to take action.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wonderful.
Alrighty then, drum roll, please. You sound like our cat. It's time for our listener feedback spotlight while Shai is here purring with me. We get to hear from one of our listeners
about how transformation has impacted their lives. And if you'd like to learn more or register for any of our upcoming courses, visit transformationmadeeasy.com.
Yeah.
And when I say easy, it's like the fire swamp.
Yeah, join us.
If you know your way through it, it's easy. If you have a good guide, it's easy. If you don't, well, there's rodents of unusual size. There's lightning sand.
all
What's the other
those.
thing?
I don't remember.
Oh, and the fire spurts.
There you
Right.
go.
There you go.
We're great
Transformation made easy.
guides.
Hi, here is Renate from Bieserach in Switzerland. In these days, I had sometimes had the feeling of really like I'm stressed and just not feeling well. But then I connect with people out of this community, and it's so nice. Something in me just relaxes and it comes all the joy back that's inside me, and I just love it.
Do you want to have well-being with consistency? Connect with people all over the world from the comfort of your own home at Ariel and Shire's lively interactive Living Made Easy virtual seminars. Join any of their 2-hour online events or take a deep dive into the magic of being you at a virtual weekend seminar. Come on, let's connect. Find out more and register at transformationmadeeasy.com.
This Saturday, there's no Living Made Easy seminar. There's certainly Living Made Easy, but not the seminar. We will be on vacation,
You can still have your life be easy.
but we'll be back next Monday and then also the following Saturday, the 7th and the 12th. Our next weekend seminar is on the theme of magical relationships.
And that's June 26th and 27th.
It's also not too early to mark your calendar for our Creativity and Intuition Weekend, August 7th and 8th. All of our seminars are still being done virtually, and you are invited. If you want to know more,
Go to our website, transformationmadeeasy.com.
should we take our next guest?
Let's take them.
All right.
Hi, Ariel. Hi, Shaya.
Hi.
This is Michelle in Manhattan, New York.
Yes.
And the topic that we are talking about is certainly true also for me. I was at war with my parents, with how I grew up, and with how I was. And
Can I stop you for a second?
sure.
You're normal. Yeah, I don't know many people who, as they grew up, weren't at one time or another at war with their parents or at war with their environment where they grew up or thought their life shouldn't be different.
That's part of the growing process where you make assumptions or misassumptions and then you go about your life and discover what's your truth. So sounds like you had a good starting point. Now what?
Yeah, well, this is where transformation comes in, because it allowed me to see that I was having a very narrow-minded view of my past, of my parents, and so on. And transformation allowed me to see my love for my parents, for which I'm very grateful. Sometimes it feels that, I had these stories about how I saw myself and how I did things wrong. And sometimes these ideas still pop up in certain situations, and I recognize them as the story, the made-up story that they are, but still there's some investment in it, or it triggers something in me, something old that I don't want to have. So,
well, look, if you don't want to have it, you're stuck with it. That's the problem. See, you're a scientist. Albert Einstein was a scientist, and he said that you cannot solve a problem from within the system that created that problem. And so your system that you grew up in is judging your behavior for how you were and how you should be different. Your standards that are part of the cultural download that you received growing up in Switzerland. Your standards influence the possibilities that you can see in life. So anything that's not within the realm of those specific standards of behavior and relationship that you learned, they don't exist as possibilities. The possibility that you could have the kind of relationship you have with Susan these days didn't exist before you met us.
Now, mind you,
And I'm not taking credit for it. I'm just saying that you didn't see as a possibility living in New York City.
but
That's
also you couldn't. I mean, aside from you didn't have the concept, Susan, you didn't have the experience, Susan, but when you received the download in your formative years from to 1 to 2 to 3 up to 6, those are really the absorption years of how to be and what to do, and then you perfect it over time. There wasn't the internet. The idea that you could be separate and have real-time conversation, it was not a technology even that existed. So the idea to expect that you could know something other than what you knew is an unrealistic expectation on yourself. The other thing,
But what I want to get at is when you judge yourself, you're judging yourself by the standards of the culture you grew up in. And if you think you should have done it differently, that's the culture you grew up in. Everybody there thinks they should have done it differently.
Yeah.
one size fits all.
Gray. Okay, beige. Okay, Loden green.
That's so true. And there are things about my culture that I'm proud of, and other things that I judge. And
Well, being proud of is a
is
form of judgment. It's just on the positive side. See, change has positive and negative. It's judgmental. It's good and bad and right and wrong.
And proud and ashamed.
And exactly. And transformation is about seeing what is non-judgmentally, just seeing what is.
I get that. At least I get it in theory. Sometimes in practice, it's more difficult because there's initially always this emotional attachment to some idea. But once I see it as what it is, then it becomes transformative, and I let it go.
Yes, but there's a repulsion to change. Anything outside of the reality that you grew up in as normal is repulsive. It's like like it's a shock to your system of the way you go about life. It's not something you embrace. Most part, people do not embrace change. They do not embrace things that are different than they're used to. And life shows up moment by moment. It's all new. At any moment, the whole thing is all new. Now we sequentialize it in our thoughts so that we hold things over time, but the moment is new. It doesn't happen in time. It's instantaneous, and that's where transformation exists.
It's interesting, Michelle, because I can see, you have a very logical, organized mind, and in that logical, more organized mind, you want to excise or get rid of or move on from the quote negative things.
Yes.
And what we're talking about here, have you ever been wrestling with something or concerned with something and you speak to someone like Susan or us or one of your friends, and they've experienced that as well, and all they have to do is say, yeah, and it relaxes it for you.
Yes, absolutely.
If you get rid of all those things, you will have no compassion for anyone. That you have those things, that they're embodied in you, allows you to have that connection where you're like, yeah, I know that one. And the other person thinks, wow, I'm not weird. Look, Michelle's this great guy. And if he has that and he's cool with himself, I can be cool with myself.
That is so cool. I haven't seen it like this. Having these thoughts and ideas actually can be beneficial in relationship to other people, my wife, Susan, and my family and friends. Thank you.
Yeah. But, you know, we're getting close to working on ourselves here.
Yes, you now have a solution to this problem that you don't actually have.
Mind is tricky.
Yes, mine is very tricky.
Thank you so much, guys. This is.
You're welcome. See, Michelle, there's no place to get to. You're already here.
Yes. Thank you.
That's my gift to you.
Thank you so much.
You don't have to be any different than you are to be completely and totally complete, well, and satisfied in yourself.
I have a question for you before we go. Is your wife a pretty smart lady?
She is.
She didn't pick a broken one.
So true.
She picked you background and all.
And this is so amazing.
Yes.
So is life.
Oh, you want to know next week's episode?
Yes, where the magic happens. Oh, I like that.
I bet it's with being here.
I bet it
I
is.
will have to tune in next week to find out.
Yes.
We'll be back next week.
So come on back.
And don't miss
Being here.
I love it when you say that.
Being here.